Recording and live. All right.
Yay.
Yay. All right. Hello, everyone. I am Patrick Monette, licensed mental health counselor and certified life coach. And welcome to Friday Night Feels. Friday Night Feels is a show for men who want to create better connection and communication with themselves and the people close to them. Each episode will feature a guest expert that will take you on a deep dive into the topic of men's wellness, including relationship and emotional well-being. My guest for this week is Katie Cooper, who is a health coach, occupational therapist, and busy mom of two little girls. After suffering and healing from burnout, she is on a mission to help others prevent or heal from stress, overwhelm, and burnout. She is passionate about living a full, healthy, and balanced life in the real world, and also supports and loves supporting her clients on their journey towards health and wellness. So welcome to Friday Night Feels, Katie.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited. We were just chatting before we got about, I forgot about the burnout part. So that is such a great topic. So tell me a little bit. We're both representing the East Coast. I'm in New York and you're in New Jersey, right?
That's right. Yep.
Two wonderful neighboring states. So East Coast is represented tonight. So tell me a little bit about your experience. We hear those terms so often, burnout, stress, and I feel like we need to define them a little bit.
Yes.
So how do you define that?
I think for myself, burnout was really kind of like a wall. I couldn't function anymore. I was super tired, anxious about everything, not functioning in any of my roles, and just felt like I can't do this anymore. And so it was I couldn't pinpoint, what it was, but I just did not feel like myself. I didn't have any capacity to really do things well at that point.
Wow. And and how long ago did this happen?
This was during the pandemic, so around I think it was 2021.
Okay.
I was frontline healthcare worker
Oh my gosh, yes.
in leadership and just felt like I couldn't take care of myself at that point. I
Right.
really struggled.
And as an occupational therapist, a lot of that is being very close to people, correct? I don't know that much about it, but I mean, I just know the ones here, like you've gone, sometimes you can go into homes, is that correct?
Yeah, and that's what I do. I go into people's homes and I see them, in their settings. So they don't come to me, I go to them.
Okay. How did that change with COVID? That must have been extremely stressful.
There were a lot of people who didn't want us in their homes, understandably. We also go to assisted living facilities, and a lot of facilities didn't really know how to handle the situation. And so
Right.
there was a lot of change and turmoil and kind of figuring it out on the fly. And we didn't have supplies. It was
Right.
crazy.
It's been a wild 3.5 years, hasn't it? I mean,
Yeah, it really has.
or 3 years, whatever it's been. A decade, I don't know. It's a
It feels
black
like
hole of
it.
time. I know, isn't that funny? Like something happened the other day that reminded me of a time like during the first, month, right? Where it was just like that eerie silence. I was like, was that really in my lifetime? It's crazy how it's been.
Absolutely.
So, and it's interesting because I don't know about in your education program, but for counselors, they talk about preventing burnout all the time. But when you're new to the field, you're like, oh, I'm never going to get burnt out. This doesn't make sense. How could you ever get burnt out on this? And then you enter the field, and then all of a sudden you're just like, I noticed for me, which was I'm so glad you're on tonight, to talk about this, to get more awareness about it, because I think there's judgment externally and internal judgment about burnout. And I don't know if that's your experience where I should be strong enough, I should be healthy enough, all of the shoulds,
Hmm.
which don't counteract the damage of being burnt out and of stress.
Absolutely. I mean, I struggled with that myself. I would just like keep pushing, like, I got to do this. This is my job. I have to push through. I have to take care of myself. I have to take care of all these people and my family. And it just takes such a toll on yourself when you don't have the tools in place to know how to take care of your own mental health and stress. And I don't think that we were really given those tools in school to figure
Right.
out how to manage that. And honestly, like just the rigor of education, you get out of school and you're like, oh, I'm free now. I have a job, I have
Yes.
money. This is great.
Yes. Yeah. That's perfect. Yes. It's all been worth it for this. And then all of a sudden you're
Yeah.
like, what am I getting into or what am I in? And then especially with the last few years, the the amount of stress and anxiety and all of the feels that we've all experienced in different ways. And I think that when historically that I would hear about burnout or self-care, self-care has become like a new word of the day, right? And light a candle, go for a walk, go to the gym, all of these things, and then you're either depressed because everything's shut down or there's this awful pandemic, but also you're still trying to function and go to your job and do everything as if it's normal. And I
Yeah.
think for myself, that stress just took a toll.
Yeah, and I think what I'm finding now with a lot of people that I work with, we got through like the hard part, but we just didn't necessarily heal from all of that stress we were under. Regardless
Right,
of your position and what you did, there was a lot of stress and trauma over those
right,
3 years. And
absolutely.
now we're just kind of going back to normal, but our capacity for stress is like we're already up here, right? From just the buildup of the last 3 years, and any little thing just spills over so quickly.
Yes,
And
yes.
I think all of us need to take this like a kind of step back and figure out, okay, what do I need to do to kind of lower that like stress threshold and like take care of that and heal from everything we've been through.
Right. So is that how you started into your coaching?
Yeah, so when I kind of hit that wall, I call it my wall, when
Right,
I finally like I can't do this anymore. I did go to therapy to work on like the anxiety and just like coping mechanisms. And then when I finally felt like had a handle on my mental health, I said, you know what, I need to kind of do something to really like put these strategies into place. And I had worked with a health coach many years ago after my first daughter was born. And I thought, you know what? I had been kicking around the idea of going to health coaching school. Let me just do this. And I really went into it to do it for myself, just to make small changes over the course of the program and learn, kind of deep dive into like the science behind the wellness stuff that I do.
right.
And as I was going through it, I thought, "Oh my goodness, everyone needs this. We all need a health coach to help us right now figure out how to get our health and wellness back on track after everything we've been through."
Right, right.
Yeah, so I that's when I kind of started kicking around, working with people and helping others through this.
Could you kind of walk me through what a health coach actually does?
Yeah. So we really just really support and guide our clients through their health and wellness journey. So, you know, a lot of times you go to the doctor and they say, "Oh, you know what? You need to lose a few pounds," or "Oh, you're on the cusp of diabetes. We need to fix this." And you get
Right,
a pamphlet and you're on your way. And
right, right,
I don't know how to do this. I don't know
right,
what I how to put this into like actual life. And so we kind of help our clients figure out all of those steps to take and guide them through the accountability piece and the sustainability of those changes that they need to make.
oh wow. When someone comes to see you, what does that process look like?
It's very client centered. So we really start, with them and what are their challenges, what are their problems, and what are their goals. And kind of set up some achievable goals, through the course of like whatever length of program they're signing up for. And then, each time we meet, we kind of check in. Okay, how is it going with this? Do we need to establish goals. We need to change things. Are things going great? Can we move on to another goal? And kind of support them. And a lot of times, you know, as much as I want to educate people on like all the health and wellness things, that's really not the purpose of it. It's really for the
Okay.
client to come and say, these are the things I need to work on, and get that support to say, yeah, that's great. Okay, how are you going to implement that?
Right.
Where are you going to get the support to achieve that goal?
Right.
So that's the coaching piece of it, I guess.
Okay. And what has your experience been like since you started studying this and became a coach?
It's been amazing. I've always been in a profession where I help people, and I
Hmm.
really enjoy that. But typically, the people I'm helping as an occupational therapist, they're coming to me after an injury or an illness where they're really debilitated and they need to get back on their feet.
Right.
Whereas somebody who's coming to me for health coaching, they're pretty healthy, generally speaking, and they're
Right.
just trying to like maximize their health or prevent things from happening or get back on track. And the transformations that they're able to make is just it's so amazing to be a part of that and to support them through that,
Right.
and be part of that journey. Some of the things that people have told me is just it's phenomenal what they are able to achieve.
That sounds so inspiring.
It really is, yeah.
Like, and I'm sure you went into it, looking and wanting to help people. But then when you start meeting people, you're like, oh my gosh, this is even better than I could have imagined. Like you're seeing real people with real struggles, and they're trusting you, and then not only just trusting you, but also getting results.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are it's so relatable what you were saying about going to the doctors, and I know doctors are burnt out and overworked themselves, and it's a whole other barrel of monkey is. But I've talked about my own struggles on Friday Night Feels before, especially like with food and unhealthy relationships there. And I remember through the course of my life, it's been better and then it gets worse. And one physician told me, well, the only way for anyone to really lose weight is to do like Jenny Craig.
Oh,
And I was just like, nothing against Jenny Craig, but I was like, it just like slid off, right? I was like, okay, so there is a dose of shame that
yeah.
instead of like having a conversation. And it wasn't until years later where my doctor set me up with a dietitian.
Hmm.
And to me, that was life changing, because it was finally someone who, and I know that's different than what you're doing, but in the same vein of
Hmm.
helping people, where I had someone who was just dedicated to help educate and support me on what I'm doing. And
Yeah.
to me, that was
Mhm.
revolutionary. And I know, excuse me, I know for my health, it will be a long life journey. And I do better, how it is, like you do better, you have different seasons. But having someone that's there for your health is amazing. And I think, like you said, everyone needs it.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you were talking about like Jenny Craig, it was like, oh my gosh, I'm so against the diet culture. And like, I feel like anytime you feel restricted in like what you eat, it adds the stress to everything. And
Yeah,
stress causes inflammation and weight gain. So, like if the food you're eating is causing stress, we're just like on this big cycle and it's not going to work.
right. And it was funny. I remember one of our sessions, I think she told me, well, you can eat whatever you want. And I was just
Yeah.
like, I'm sorry. What? And she said, in moderation. And then for the first time in my life, I didn't see that as like a failure or
Yeah.
someone's trying to control me. And so I think I actually, as I think as adults, sometimes we think we're supposed to know what everything means. And I understand what moderation means, but the emotional part of me didn't.
Yeah.
And being able to say, can you break this down for me? Because I know the plates, I know this, I know the skills, but having someone that I could be vulnerable with a part of my life that didn't feel healthy.
Hmm.
Um, I kind of was at the crossroads, because sort of like some of the issues you're saying, if I didn't start to make changes, I would have developed some serious health issues.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's kind of scary when you think I have that much power and I'm not making good decisions and I don't know why.
Yeah, I like the power aspect of it. Like we do have so much power over our bodies and our health, and it's so easy to just say, "Oh, whatever's going to happen to me is going to happen. I can't control it." But we do have that control to an extent, and it's empowering to know, "Oh, okay, I can handle this," and get some support in that area.
And also, it's for me, I would imagine it's also this is this is obtainable for me.
Mhm.
And I think that if you going in the vein of weight, you kind of just live in this, well, if I was like him, or if I was like her, if I could do it like this, or it seems so easy for them, or the comparison game. and
Mhm.
and having someone say, well, it may not be exactly the same because you're different, but we can definitely get you in that arena. And then
Yeah.
it becomes a little bit more realistic of, oh my gosh, this is something obtainable. And to me, that's
Mhm.
been really important to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. The goals have to be attainable and they have to be achievable, otherwise you're gonna fail. And like,
Right.
like the failure feels horrible. So that like as a health coach, I'm always working with my clients to make sure that the goals that we set are realistic because that success makes you be able to continue on and like set the higher level goals. But you have to feel that success to keep going.
Right, right. So what are, I mean, I would imagine there's so many areas as a health coach that you could really specialize in. Do you have a particular area that you're drawn to?
Yeah, I'm really focused on helping other healthcare professionals kind of manage their stress, work-life balance, burnout, all of that. As a healthcare professional, I speak their language. I understand everything they're going through.
You might call them on their BS a little and be like,
Probably, yeah, yeah,
Patrick, I've lived it. I've lived it.
yeah. But also,
Wow.
like, I know how hard it is to be in the healthcare industry, and we're losing good people left and right, because of just it's a hard job, obviously.
Right.
And so those of us still working in it, like, I want to support them and, help them be as healthy as possible.
Right. And that must be such an incredible opportunity for them to have someone who speaks the same language. Like knowing that, I would be like, okay, I could see myself opening up a little bit easier to someone who's been in a similar field.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like when I picked my health coach years ago, she was a mom of 2 and could totally speak my language as a new mom. She totally
Right.
understood what I was going through. And so I do think there is something to be said to picking your health coach, your providers where someone you can relate to.
Right. Absolutely. Now, here's a question that I always love getting into. How do you define stress?
Hmm. Stress, I define as the body's reaction to a stressor. So anything that you perceive um, something that could cause you harm. So it could be
Okay.
external, it could be internal, and it's what happens internally when we perceive that stressor. So the body going into fight or flight, and that's stress. That's the feeling that you get when you are under a stress response.
Right. And do people think that they're just supposed to put up with it? Do you find?
Yeah, I think we've become numb to it because we
Okay.
are thrown stressors all day long. I
Right.
mean, I could go on my phone and see 10 right now, right?
Right. Right. Right.
In our modern world, there's just new
Inundated.
stressor, yeah, inundated. So I think we've gotten so used to feeling that stress constantly, we don't even realize it. And then when
Right.
you finally like step back and kind of take a, check in, you're like, oh, wait a minute, this isn't normal. I should not be feeling
Right.
this way.
Right. It's almost what I feel sometimes like a constant bombardment.
Yeah.
And even when you're trying to relax, one of the things that and I've talked about this before, that I thought ordering out and watching TV, ordering out food and watching TV would make me feel better, especially in the first few days of the shutdown. And then all of a sudden I just felt like this totally bloated flush of a person. I'm just becoming part of the couch. And my stress levels weren't going down, they were probably going up.
Yeah.
And that's what I think led to going to the doctor, of just kind of saying, or starting to even be more aware of, I need to start making some different decisions. But it's
Mhm.
hard. It's hard.
It really is. And I love that you bring up like sitting on the couch and eating takeout, because I do think we think like turning on the TV at the end of the day, like that's my way to decompress. But actually, the body continues to stay in fight or flight unless we do specific things to turn it off. And this is a big area that I love to educate people on, because I think that if you understand how easy it is to turn off that stress response, like a 1 minute breathing activity where you're taking deep breaths for, and there's lots of exercises out there, or even going for a walk before you sit down on the couch and watch that show. Those are
Right.
two really easy ways to turn that stress response off. And then that time that you spend after that is actually letting your body recover from the stress.
Right. Why do you think, Katie, we struggle with that so much?
I think we just don't understand like how the body is working in regards to our stress. It's the biological response, and so if we don't understand what that is internally, we can't turn it off effectively.
Right. And I think, going back to what I learned, oh, watching TV is about relaxation. It's my downtime. I can watch some mindless TV. But what I fall into is, I'm not just watching TV, I'm usually scrolling on the phone. So I've been
Yeah.
trying to really, it's hard to decrease your cell use, I find, or
Oh,
your
yes.
electronic use. I've been reading a lot more, at least, you know how like social media is, you talk about it and then it shows up in your feed, right? Like, not creepy at all. But I've been really enjoying learning more about healthy sleep habits, which I didn't even know how bad sleep habits I had, and
Mm.
sometimes still do. Do you find that at all, being a health coach, of hearing those stories?
Yeah, sleep is a big issue. I think a lot of people struggle with sleep, whether it's getting to sleep or waking up in the middle of the night and not being able to go back to sleep. And like you said, there are a lot of ways to improve what we call sleep hygiene, or like that routine that you have before you go to bed. And then strategies if you do wake up, how to get back to sleep. But
Right.
yeah, it's a real
What would
struggle.
be like one tip that you might be able to share with us tonight?
So like the biggest thing I think, especially with all the electronics, is really turning them off like 30 minutes to an hour before you go to bed, because it gives the brain time to kind of decrease that stimuli and relax. Um, and I like to have kind of like a routine around going to bed. So maybe I, stretch a little bit, or I have a cup of tea. I like to read for a little bit. And those are things that aren't as stimulating, but help my body kind of relax from the day
Okay.
and before I get into bed.
This might sound like a silly question, but it's it's still valid. When you say reading, is do you mean actual books, or are you using a device?
So I should be using a book, but I do have the Kindle app on my phone,
Okay.
and that is pretty convenient right now.
Right? It's just like a
Yeah,
whole world. And because that's one
I
of the
know.
things too, of like, it's right there. And what I try to do sometimes is, when I'm reading, is I put it on airplane mode.
Hmm.
And I mean, I don't have kids, so I don't have a lot of I don't have to be accessible as much as other people do, or
Yeah.
it's certain, like, I have that privilege. But when I'm going to bed, or getting ready to go to bed, having the airplane mode, it's almost like someone does shut something off, and I can breathe, and I feel as if I come back online.
Yes, absolutely. And you can also change the lighting settings on your phone. So at a certain time, the light changes on my phone to be more of a yellow. So it's less of the blue
Oh,
light. And so
oh, okay.
it's supposed to be better for you
Right.
in when it's dark out.
Right. That's interesting. And it's hard because the convenience comes with convenience, but comes with a cost.
Yes. Yeah.
And are there any other tips that you could share with us of things that you'd see or that you'd like people to know a little bit more about tonight?
Oh, so many.
It's like, I mean, how do I choose? How do I choose?
I think going back to kind of the food stuff, I love the 80-20 rule. So 80% of the time I eat the foods that make me feel good. The healthy fruits and vegetables, the grains, the protein, I eat a balanced meal. 20% of the time, if I want the hamburger and french fries, I'm going to eat it. I'm not going to feel guilty about it. I'm going to enjoy it. And
Okay.
that way I take away the stress of, the foods that maybe I know are not as good for me,
Right.
but I can enjoy them and I can really feel like I'm indulging but not guilty about it, I guess is what I'm
Okay.
trying to say.
Do you find, and that's really helpful. I really appreciate that. Do you find additional stress of being a mom that people don't talk enough about?
Yes.
So I don't know if that came out the most articulate, but because I know
No.
it's like, are people talking about it enough? Like, because I know it's a thing, and I know it's real and it's a valid, but I almost feel that we have a deficit of support for all parents, but I just know for moms, because you are one, that there's a lot there to
There
to carry.
there is. Yeah, there's a lot, and I think there's more that people are talking about around it, but not necessarily the support. So there's a lot of right Instagram and YouTubers that make these hilarious videos that are so accurate, and really bringing awareness to our realities.
Right.
Um, but the support side of it, it's hard because we don't have these tight knit communities like they had in the 50s where you could send your kids next door to if you had
Right.
something going on. We just don't have that sense of community now. So building that is really hard, I feel like, right now in this day and
Right.
age.
I didn't even think of that. Yeah, because like growing up, you could usually you had these like one neighbor that you could just pop over to, or if you were telling your parents where you're going, it was safe, and you could just
Yeah,
go,
yeah.
or you didn't have to worry about all of the things that we're worrying about in our world today. That's I didn't even think about that as a non-parent. And one of the things that I have seen is is the mom guilt is really really
Mhm.
really hard, and it whether it's professionally or personally, I just meet these amazing parents, right? And just keeping in the spirit of moms who are so hard on themselves, and they
Yeah.
are amazing, amazing parents. And they are loving and they are there when their kiddos need them and they're doing it all. But they get these messages and talk
Yeah.
about stress. And as a non-parent protective energy, get very protective of you are doing right. Like leave that other stuff out because it's depleting the joy of being a parent.
Yeah, I mean, talk about needing to get off social media because that does not help with the mom guilt at all.
Right.
You know?
Maybe we should have a whole episode on that, Katie. Maybe we could.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll be a niche in your coaching, and we can come back and have you talk about that because it makes me angry for moms because it's hard enough being a mom. It's hard enough being a parent when you're worrying about these little beings that you just want to love and give the world to, and you're dealing with all this nonsense, like the judgment and the shame, and it's just too much. And then I'm sure when you're working with professionals, you see, another side is like the working mom guilt and all of that, and being
Oh
a
yeah.
professional.
Yeah, I get that all the time. And being a working mom, it is challenging. But at the same time, the way I frame it for myself is I'm showing my children the example of how they can be successful when they're parents maybe someday. Because I have two girls, so I want them to have a role model and show them, hey, I can be a great mom to you, and I can also be a professional and build a business,
Right.
and show them both sides of it. And I've been bringing them into more of that world so that they can kind of see what does mommy do?
That's
Um,
awesome.
and help them understand why some nights I have to do an earlier bedtime so I can be on a podcast.
Yes.
You know?
Which we appreciate.
No, it's good. It's good.
Now, since becoming, and I know we're running low on time, but I just wanted to ask, how has the transition for your family been since you've become a health coach? Because I must imagine that's been a transformation for you. And then it's just sort of like that enlightenment of like, I want everyone to know this stuff. At least that's how I would be.
Yeah, I try not to like preach to my family. I really let them come to me if they want my advice. But I've seen like a big transformation in my husband actually, and I really don't push anything on him, but I'll share, why I changed to non-dairy milk or why I have been eating these vegetables. And like now, I mean, he used to drink a gallon of milk a week, and now it's like our milk goes bad because
Right.
he drinks the oat milk in his matcha latte, which he never
Right.
did before, So it's rubbing off
Right,
slowly.
right. Which you might deny to the public, but between us, I'm just it's like I need the oat milk. That's
Right.
awesome. And I love that because that's also, it just fortifies a healthy family.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah.
So if people wanted to connect with you, Katie, how could they do that? Because I want to know more about what you're offering because I think we all need it.
Yeah. So I have a website, katiecooperwellness.com, and I'm on Instagram at the same name at Katie Cooper Wellness.
Okay.
Or you can just email me, Katie
Okay.
at katiecooperwellness.com. It's all the same.
Yeah,
Easy.
I love that. And I'll definitely look you up on Instagram. I love connecting on that because, that was one of the things that I discovered in COVID too, during, all of that. And is what are you filling your feeds with? And, I'm not a huge, I use it like an average person, but I realized, oh, I have some power over this. So when I connect with people, especially through Friday Night Feels, who have such an awesome positive message, I'm like, that's who I want in my feed. Like, I want to see what they're up to. I want to build that connection. And you and I were talking briefly before we started of, when Friday Night Feels started, and it was March 2020, so 3 years ago. Because I was feeling so lost and discombobulated, and it's being able to connect 3 years later with people from all over is just amazing.
Yeah, that sense of community is so powerful.
Yes,
I think it's nice to know like I'm not alone in my struggles and my
right,
challenges, and then to like support each other as you have successes and wins.
right, right, exactly. So as we wind down tonight, so you can go and enjoy a Friday evening, which I appreciate you carving time out for me tonight. Is there one piece of advice that you would like people to walk away from with our conversation tonight?
I think it's just, one step at a time, just make one decision, one positive thing and, towards that health goal that you have. And then you'll just keep adding on, but you don't have to try and like change everything overnight. Just do one thing and it'll make you
Right.
feel so much better.
Awesome. I love that. Well, thank you, Katie, so much for coming on Friday Night Feels. I appreciate your time and all of the great work that you're doing. And you'll have to come back because I feel like we could have so many other conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime. Thank you so much for having me.
Sure. And everyone, thank you for supporting Friday Night Feels. Remember to subscribe the YouTube channel and to look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks on our next Friday Night Feels. Have a good night, everyone.